Namaste India, this is Ravi Nahar. I am the founder of Ramayana Decoded, and firstly I wanted to say a huge thanks to each and every single one of you for following Ramayana Decoded. It is your passion and your enthusiasm of wanting to learn more about the true scientific and spiritual lessons of the Valmiki Ramayana that keeps Ramayana Decoded going. It also gives me the reason and the purpose to work hard on writing this book for you guys, which I'm hoping will be available to you next year. And in building this organization, I'm hoping to bring it to India as an organization and perhaps open up an ashram where you guys can come and learn more about Ramayana Decoded. Now, I get a lot of questions from people all over India, and one question which seems to come up quite often and is very common is around mantras, the kind of purpose and why we have them, and do they actually work. To be able to understand mantras, there's a lot of other things which are happening around a mantra, and the way I'm going to explain this is kind of very simple terms. What I want you to do is think back to the times of ancient India when the Rishis were around, and these Rishis were perhaps the most advanced civilization known to mankind. Their level of consciousness was so far beyond ordinary level of consciousness that it becomes very difficult to be able to understand what a Rishi actually is. Now, during that time when the Vedic scriptures were written, when the Ramayana, the Mahabharata was written, these rishis understood one thing, and that was that the mental virtue of mankind, or dharma, ascends and descends. And I'm going to draw this out for you because one yuga cycle consists of 24,000 years in a round circle split into half, like that. So it consists of 24,000 descending in man's knowledge and 24,000 years in ascending in man's knowledge. So on the other side, if this Facebook thing allows me to do this, let's try it one more time. So over here we go, is ascending. And the Satyug, Treta Yug, Dwapar Yug, Kal Yug descends on one side, and what that means is that spiritual knowledge, mental knowledge, atomic knowledge, and then the Kal Yuga, the point of where you can't perceive anything beyond the physical reality that you're perceiving through your eyes, all that knowledge begins to diminish, and there's a lot of unrest generally around the world in terms of wars, etc., and political unrest. I know that's still happening, but if you go then to the other side of ascending, you have the ascending Kal Yuga, ascending Dwapar Yuga, the ascending Treta Yuga, and the ascending Satyug. And what happens, I want to clear this off, what happens during that time period is that man's mental virtue and dharma starts to increase, and everything that has been lost during the descending period is slowly coming back into humanity in the ascending period. For example, organizations like Ramayana Decoded, where we work very hard to bring a shift in man's consciousness and being able to understand and perceive the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, or any other kind of questions you have in the Vedic scriptures, to be able to take it beyond just the sutra, just the shlok, just the storyline. Now, what these rishis of ancient India did was, when they encoded all this information, they understood that man's mental virtue was decreasing, and as a result, they took events which were happening at their time, or events which were yet to happen, and encoded that into a story. Because everybody remembers a story, and all their spiritual knowledge of God realization and very, very highly advanced Adi Devik and Adi Atmic levels of knowledge and techniques for understanding and perceiving God consciousness was all encoded within the Vedic scriptures of ancient India. And one thing that was basically the platform, and out of that platform came mechanical belief systems. And these mechanical belief systems, I feel, are very important, because it is those mechanical belief systems that keep you hooked to understanding and realizing and having a purpose in life, to wanting to go on that spiritual path and understanding the self, understanding God, understanding meaning and purpose in your life and what's happening around you. Taking that further, when you start bringing this paradigm shift in man's consciousness, you start digging deep and below into the actual sutras and shloks, which is what we are doing here at Ramayana Decoded. And one of the things that the rishis did as part of this was create mantras. And there's basically 4 levels of communication. The lowest level of communication is the one which we are using now, which is basically human conscious level of communication using speech, also known as Vaikhari, so the mundane human conscious level, and that's open to interpretation and misinterpretation. That's followed by Madhyama, which is kind of midpoint between spiritual and physical communication. Then there's Pashyanti, which is communicating through the spiritual eye, which is for very, very highly advanced yogis who have taken Sivikalpa Samadhi or Nirvikalpa Samadhi. And then there is further than that is Para, which is usually what the Rishis of ancient India would use to communicate, which is a very, very highly advanced. So why would highly advanced Rishis who communicate using Para encode all of this? Like I said, because of these mechanical belief systems, wanting to keep your inner consciousness, your Rama consciousness, engaged within the actual true spiritual essence of what's actually going on. Because ultimately the Ramayana it's a process which is happening within your body and mind right this very moment. And in order to keep you linked or hooked to that, these mechanical belief systems are very important, and as part of that came mantras. Now mantras do work, but you have to know how to do them and how to pronounce them, which is very, very important. So take for example the Gayatri mantra, which is Om Bhur Bhuvaswa Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Diyo Yuna Prachodaya. I'm sure there's lots of you who can pronounce that a lot better than I can, but that is a mantra, and if you know anything about the Gayatri mantra, you will know that if you can pronounce the Gayatri mantra, you're ultimately reciting the whole entire Ramayana. And there is a post on that historically which I put up, I think it was in 2016, so you can check that out. So basically these mantras are sound vibrations, and your body is woven from light and sound energy. So there's sound coming out of your mouth, you're reciting a mantra, and these mantras come from the Sanskrit language. And Sanskrit language is the most ancient and the most advanced type of language. It is known as the language of the gods, because the Sanskrit language contains 50 bija sounds, which are also part of your centers of consciousness along the spine and the Sahasrara above the head. And these 50 sounds replicate along the spine. Now, when you are reciting a mantra, which is sound vibration, and you can do it correctly and with the correct pronunciation, the correct focus, ultimately what you're doing is you're balancing out your energies that are revolving around you. Everything is energy. And for example, there's radio waves right this very moment which are moving through the ether, but you cannot tune into those because you have ordinary human consciousness. And if you are able to transcend your consciousness to deeper, more higher levels of consciousness that are more in sync with what's happening at a deeper level within the universe, you are able then to communicate and sync yourself with those energies. And that's the purpose of the mantras. So you have the kind of Shani mantra, you've got the Gayatri mantra, and you've got all these various types of mantras which you can use, which all then falls into the kind of astrology side of things, depending on which Mahadasha you're currently going through. And ultimately, yep, that is a very basic explanation on the use of mantras. You should recite your mantras, but when you are reciting your mantras, be sure to meditate, be completely still and focus over here and clear your mind and recite your mantra, because if you're able to do that, then you are ultimately syncing your energies rather than just recite. Mantra yoga or japa yoga, you are still engaged within the outside world. So my kind of advice to you in the way I do it is I will sit and concentrate for half an hour or so before I start reciting mantras. I hope that helps. If you have any questions, feel free to post them to me, but I will follow this up with a post which will go into it in more detail. Thank you.